Hello and welcome to another episode of DCU Daily. We're back live today. Of course, we hope that you have had an amazing Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, or just the holidays, however you celebrate it or don't celebrate it. Hopefully, you had an amazing week so far. Of course, today we have got to talk about Creature Commandos. That is the big uh, DC thing of the day, let's say that. But that's not the only piece of news and analysis that we have to get into. We also have to talk about, of course, more stuff from the world of DC Studios, aka mostly Superman. The trailer is still making waves. In fact, it's making so many waves. It's now making waves in Lego form, and we want to give our opinion on what we thought about the Lego version of the Superman trailer, which, while not sanctioned by DC Studios, it is appreciated by DC Studios and the man, the myth, the legend himself, James Gunn. So we have to talk about that. We're gonna get into how much Arnold Schwarzenegger got paid for Batman and Robin. It's a pretty big number. He had fun with the movie, and he was laughing all the way to the bank. But then we have other little tidbits like what's going on with the DCU Flash. James Gunn gave us a bit of a hint. We've all been wondering, are we gonna get the Wally West Flash, the Barry Allen Flash, a Flash of any kind? But we'll talk about that, of course. And then beyond that, of course, we have you in the chat, so we cannot wait to get your comments. I heard Lenny was looking for a kiss from John yesterday, so regardless of whether that was under the mistletoe or not, here he is. Hello, John. How are you doing today? How was your Christmas? And how did you spend your day?
Christmas is good. I'm not a big Christmas head. I'm a bit of a Grinch, a little bit when it comes to Christmas. I like to watch my movies. I still need to watch a couple horror movies that I didn't get a chance to on the day, but it's close. It's near. It's still December. It's fine. People have their Christmas decorations up until Valentine's Day, so it's like whatever. If I watch some movies past the day, I don't think anybody's gonna fucking come for my head. But I still had a decent holiday. I hope everyone else had a decent holiday, or not even a decent. I hope you had a great holiday. I hope you had an amazing holiday, whatever holiday you do celebrate, because I think now it has officially become Hanukkah. So to all you Jewish viewers, happy Hanukkah, Shalom. And I believe Kwanzaa is either today or tomorrow. I don't know when that is, but happy Kwanzaa to all the people that celebrate Kwanzaa. But and happy Boxing Day to Brits out there, because they celebrate that for some reason. So
no, Boxing Day is a great day of the year. And if you go to Canada, you get some good sales on stuff, right? It makes sense. Christmas just ended. Everything's on sale that you were probably gonna be.
That's what happens after every holiday. Like November 1st, get all the discounted Halloween candy. That's how it is.
Exactly. So. You usually gotta wait till the day after. That's all. Trick or treating. I just trick or treat on November 1st. That's the best day of the year to trick or treat. Except you have to go pay for the candy, but you pay a lot less than you would the day before. Hunter Iggy already got a suggestion for you in the chat. There's a new anime, or there is an anime. I don't know if it's new or not. Yandere Dark Elf. Yandere Dark Elf. I'm not familiar with this anime. Fiona is in the chat. Maybe she knows. But Hunter Iggy suggesting that for you. So John, you had people in the chat yesterday asking about you, man. So
yeah.
To those of you who did pop in and said hello yesterday, thanks so much. I was in the chat, hanging out with y'all, producer Dan, but Liz and John, they had a fun time, a festive time. I particularly loved the way the episode ended. But happy Boxing Day to everybody. Lots of football today, as in soccer today, Boxing Day soccer, and we'll have more sports, I'm sure, in the weeks and months to come. But we're here to talk about DC, John. And speaking of DC, let's start off by talking about some common ground, let's say, between Zack Snyder and James Gunn. Because as it turns out, James Gunn reached out to Zack Snyder to get his opinion on the whole, bulge, no bulge, trunks, no trunk situation. We've kind of covered this before, so it's not exactly brand new. News to the channel if you're a regular viewer. But if you were stopping by for the first time, if you haven't heard us talk about it, basically this is what James Gunn said in regards to the whole red trunks on Superman's suit. Because while they were trying to test out the suit and kind of figure out what the look would be for David Cornsweet in this movie, they went through different variations. I mean, it's something that they do all the time. Like famously, we have those images, and we had the scenes video of Nick Cage trying on a Superman suit for the
Hell yeah.
movie. The Superman Lives, was it? That never happened.
Yeah,
Um,
honestly, that's one of the best Superman suits. Like, I'm not even like I will say the fucking
but I
they gave him like a super thong, which looked weird, but like the rest of the suit, like the blues, the reds and the yellows, it just looks so perfect. It was very
it's
90s, but like for the time, it was just so perfect. I'm just saying,
yeah.
I wish we got that suit because
It
that suit looked baller.
I mean, honestly, like some of the elements of that suit kind of played into the Henry Cavill suit. If you look at it
Kinda,
too,
sorta.
some of the elements, but nonetheless, but the point here is that Zack Snyder, of course, went through the whole process. There's images and behind the scenes footage and video of Henry Cavill trying out older Superman suits, as well as just other variations of the one that we got to see, but unfinished versions. So similarly, David Cornsweet went to that's kind of a process trying to get fitted for a suit that not only was good for his body and shape, but also was something that James Gunn was comfortable with and was like, this is going to be our Superman. And you can't really take that too lightly because it's the superhero that's going to launch an entire cinematic universe. So basically, both James Gunn and Zack Snyder were on the same page in that process, kind of like trying out a million different combinations, and none of them could figure out like a way to make the trunks work in a way that felt like it would work in live action, right? Of course, James Gunn comes from Marvel, having done 3 Guardians movies. He's done, of course, the Suicide Squad on DC. But if you look at even how Marvel approaches things, they will give you like a comic accurate version of the suit, but they've over time a lot of their characters still in the MCU wear suits that feel a little more grounded. They're not exactly like the comics. They're adapted for the live action cinematic universe. Similarly, DC has done the same thing, and James Gunn was kind of struggling with the same question of, can we sell the trunks on Superman, the big red trunks? So he mentioned in one of the interviews talking about, basically reaching out to Zack Snyder. I even talked to Zack Snyder about it, James Gunn said. I tried like a billion versions with the trunks and just never got there. That's the response he got from Zack Snyder. And to that, James Gunn said, I see how that's the case. So that was probably a very productive phone call. It was one directed to another. He was like, hey, man, trying all this out. We went through like a million different combinations. Nothing's working out. What do you think? I want to know. Were you kind of having the same struggle? Did you, ultimately just is that the reason why you decided to just not have trunks on Henry Cavill Superman suit? And Zack Snyder was like, yeah, man, we tried a billion different versions and nothing was working, and we never quite got there, so we just didn't give him any trunks. And then James Gunn was like, well, I can see how you got to that conclusion. So I mean, it's not a big quote, but I think it's in a world where there's people out there that would like to imagine that Zack Snyder and James Gunn hate each other. I just figured
Yeah.
it's
No,
worth
no,
bringing
no,
up.
they hate each other. James Gunn just actually he didn't do any of this. He just called them and said, I'm the captain now. You're a fucking sack of shit, you fucking loser." And then Zack Snyder started screaming, You're the loser. I'm the greatest director who ever lived because I made wonky DC adaptations that outside of a small sect don't actually like. Fuck you, you fucking maggot. And then he hung up, and then James Gunn
Uh,
started screaming into the phone unintelligibly, and that's totally what actually happened.
well, I'm pretty sure that's not what happened. But what I will say though, I mean, look, there's a lot of people out there who love the Zack Snyder Man of Steel movie, as well as of course BVS, except that they're not trying to like force that opinion onto other people. I am one of those people. I love Man of Steel. I was listening to the Man of Steel soundtrack before the show
I'm
started.
just trying
But
to be funny. That's
no,
all.
I know.
Because
But hey,
that's
having
that's
said
how
that,
these fucking cultist mantra go. It's
exactly.
just they
It's
hate each
it,
other.
yeah.
It's like Zach versus James, Dawn of directors. It's like no, it's just like they worked with each other on their first one
Yeah,
of
James
James
Gunn
Gunn's
wrote the
first movies
movie.
and Zack Snyder's actual
He
first movie.
directed. Yeah,
So
exactly.
like I don't I don't get this, but whatever. People are
Nelson in the
weird.
chat, and Nelson saying Gunn should get Snyder to do the Lobo movie. You know what, Nelson, that's a good idea. I think Zack Snyder could do
No,
a good Lobo
the
movie.
problem, because here's the thing: Lobo needs like a hint of satire and irony and like comedy, and I don't think
I
Zack
mean, come
Snyder
on,
would
he
do
could
that
do it.
very well.
It just depends on who writes the script, right? Zack Snyder doesn't write his own scripts. I think that it's never been his strength. I think if he works with a script that has a bit of comedy, it could work. Oh, anyway, we're not gonna get sidetracked there. But Manos Time saying I saw someone on Twitter saying that Gunn is lying and Snyder would never say this. Yet Snyder said the exact same thing. He did. He said it in an interview. This is not the first time we have heard Zack Snyder say that they tried to make the trunks work and they never could figure it out. It just happens to be that James Gunn, probably rung him up while he was, doing some costume tests, and they've pretty much, like, okay, well, we get it. Now, of course, the later on, we also heard, and when I say later on, this report about James Gunn not being sold in the trunks came out about a week or two ago, and then in that same report, he mentioned that the reason why they ended up with trunks for Superman, that obviously now that we have seen the trailer, you can see that he wears these big red trunks on top of his uniform, not underneath. So the way they ended up there is because David Cornsweet was like, hey man, I think it doesn't look the greatest, but this is the way we should do it because that way Superman is less threatening to kids, which was like a very endearing reason to do it. I'm not entirely 100% sold that you should do it for that reason alone, but it does make sense. And also, I think remember when the trailer came out, we were looking through it. I'm trying to see if I can find the particular image where obviously throughout the trailer you see Superman has the trunks on, but then there's this one scene in the Fortress of Solitude where he's with what we think is like either a Superbot or a Kellex. We don't quite know for sure. And well, it looks like, Kellex or the Superbot with the blue cape is not in very good shape, and Superman is clearly very, distraught over it. But what we were looking at is you could clearly tell he does not actually have the super trunks on here. So it just seems like maybe there is a version or part of the movie at least.
Maybe when he goes to the fortress, he
takes them off. Like no trunks once you walk in.
Oh, finally I can take these off. They just they're just so constricting on my bulge, and then just throws them away. And then like how like a fat guy comes home and takes his pants off. I would know because I'm a fat guy who comes home. Yeah, he takes his pants off. So
yeah, I'm sure when he walks into the Fortress of Solitude, he pulls a peacemaker and he like rips them off. He goes like freedom, and then just goes on with his business. If you know, you know. But like anyway, so getting back to the whole Zack Snyder situation, yeah, James Gunn, Zack Snyder, similar minds, similar problems, similar conclusions. But hey, whereas Henry Cavill was not as involved, it seemed like, with the whole design process, or maybe perhaps he agreed with Zack Snyder. David Cornsweet was like, hey man, we should do the trunks because the kids, they would make Superman more approachable to the kids, which probably ties in a little bit to something we're going to talk about next, which is the core message of Superman. Because in the world of the DCU, unlike the DCEU, where you can clearly tell that Superman is like the first superhero of its kind, at least, that the world has come to know, which the later DCEU movies sort of contradict a little bit because, of course, Wonder Woman had been around since, 100 years ago, and the Justice Society was around. So I'm like, did the world actually not know about superheroes? But anyway, at least in Man of Steel, the way Superman is introduced is like, oh my God, he's the first superhero that the world has, seen, somebody as powerful as Superman, at least. So in the DCU, it's a world that already has a ton of superheroes. And we keep talking about how it seems like a lot of these superheroes are like, working for corporations or governments, and essentially they're like guns for hire, right? No pun intended. But so whereas Superman kind of enters the picture and he's not a gun for hire. He's sort of, like
I'm just cool guy who wants to be kind.
He wants to help people.
That's all I am.
He wants, exactly. And that's it kind of puts into context. There's a subtle difference there because of course this Superman isn't as special as the Man of Steel Superman because he isn't singular in what he can do necessarily, but he is special in the way he goes about, his business and what he chooses to do versus what he doesn't choose to do, and the principles upon which he operates.
Who you choose to be.
Exactly.
As now, we know from Iron Giant.
And that kind of ties into how, again, this Superman needs to be somebody that, kids are not afraid of, that kids are not running away from, because, he's fighting Zod, and, buildings are falling down and killing hundreds of people. Now, obviously, in the Superman trailer, there's a huge building that falls down and probably kills a few people. So, and we
A
do see,
few?
well, more than a few people probably. And we do see, a can of soup get flung at Superman's head. So obviously, Henry Cavill Superman and David Cornswet Superman will both have had to deal with, a few angry mobs because they weren't happy exactly with how they went about their business. We saw this in Marvel with the Civil War storyline. It's the whole idea of how do you bring these superheroes into a world that feels a little more grounded and real. But at the same time, James Gunn's saying the core message of Superman is about returning home. Like saying, for me, it's about bringing the innate goodness of Superman, bringing it home, bringing this character home, bringing our battered world to a brighter place of healing and bringing that home. John, what do you think this means? What do you think James Gunn is talking about here when he talks about, the message of Superman is about returning home? Is he talking about more spiritually? Is he making
Yeah,
commentary on the whole superhero genre? What
I
is he
think
saying?
yeah, I think it's a metaphor. It's a
Yeah.
metaphor, Brian. Anyway, I think yeah, it's more metaphorical. It's not like actually, but it's like
Yeah.
as he said, it's about bringing like home as a place of safety. It's a place of like agency. It's a place where it's just the innate goodness of like being yourself. You don't have to like pretend in the world, and but he wants to like make that more public. And I think that's like kind of the vibe he's giving. Like
Yeah.
we're coming back to the place of security where you feel safe. And I think
Mhm.
Superman is trying to provide that to the people, like trying to make the world obviously better, but trying to make it safer for everyone to live in, which is obvious. He's a superhero, but like in the way he's doing it, it's not just for the people, like humans, but for other people with power.
Yeah.
Like bring them home, bring them back to the place of like being okay and being
Yeah.
like okay to be who they are, not having to be like pretending to
Yeah.
be something they're not, or even if they're not pretend, like just be good for the sake of being good and not just be a corporate puppet or something like that. So I think that's like kind of the vibe we're getting, and I really like that.
Yeah, I mean that's essentially exactly it. I think James Gunn is trying to. It's that sense of like purity and nostalgia in a way that, again, James Gunn has compared it to Top Gun Maverick, right? Where it feels nostalgic, but in a way that it feels new for the here and now, and it's updated and modernized in terms of the values that this movie will have and the story that it will tell, but it will still feel like a bit of a throwback. To me, and what gets me more and more excited every day about this movie is it sort of feels like James Gunn is trying to say, and he has an opportunity with this movie and this movie alone. You can't do this with any other movie, I don't think, because it's
Hmm.
Superman. Because of what the character stands for in the comics, like what it's all about, the
Hmm.
goodness in people, and the fact that we're at a place where it's almost as if we're not reinventing the wheel, but we're sort of rediscovering the wheel. And when it comes to superhero movies, because you've gone through that, I feel like a whole era of superhero movies where we had these grounded heroes, we had the gritty heroes, we had the very optimistic heroes, we had the campy stuff. But now we're getting to a point where, like this year, half the superhero movies that came out flopped. and the other half didn't all do particularly well. I mean, even Deadpool and Wolverine felt like, if you're talking about, corporate superheroes, I mean, yes, in the movie they're not corporate, but
I mean,
that movie's about
Deadpool's
as
literally
corporate
working for a
Marvel.
corporation,
That is
a
well,
secret
it's true.
corporation
You
that's
know what?
keeping the
You're right.
timeline intact.
It's literally the whole, like, I like Deadpool and Wolverine, but it's the epitome of, I think, where the superhero genre is today, where it's like out of original ideas in a manner of speaking. Because
Yeah,
yes, of
it is.
course, we
I mean,
hadn't
it's all it
seen.
is
Yeah,
nostalgia bait. That's the
yeah,
movie.
exactly.
And it's so
So
funny how it's just one more thing, because it's like
yeah.
you have like Deadpool constantly making fun of Fox and like, oh, I'm with Disney now. I'm
Hmm.
going to go to Disney World. It's like, and I saw so many people like, oh, this movie's anti Disney. Look at all these things. They're really, but I'm like, is it though? Like from everything I've seen of the movie, it seems like Ryan Reynolds is like kissing Kevin Feige and Disney's ball sack. Like it's like, guys, I'm in Disney now. oh my god, guys, Disney, let's fucking kowtow to Disney. It's like that's what I got from what little I've seen of them. Now I could be missing something because I haven't seen the whole movie. I'm never gonna see the whole movie, but like from what I've seen, it's just like it's Deadpool just like jerking off Disney for like 90 minutes. That's like the vibe I've gotten, and like all these and nostalgia bait. Like it's. I don't know.
There were a couple. Let's just say that the direct jabs at Disney and Marvel were pretty blunt. And like they were very blunted. Like in the movie, it wasn't like he said anything that felt like, oh my god, like piercing through the heart of Disney. You know, like he caught the mouse and beat him up. The one thing that it wasn't anything like that.
Got deleted. It got cut like something about like Mickey Mouse making Mickey Mouse come or something like that, and that got cut.
Yeah, that's probably like from the highest of highest ups in Disney, like the board of directors above Bob Iger being like, we ain't putting that in the movie. I'm sorry, but like, yes. But again, exactly. But the point I was trying to make is with Superman, you're getting.
Yes.
I feel like potentially a new beginning to the whole genre of superhero movies as a whole. It's especially because when you talk about like
13th Part 5, a new beginning.
Exactly. Pretty much exactly that.
Let's not
exactly that. Yeah.
13th Part 5 because that movie sucks. But you know, it's.
But I mean, you look at the trailer, you look at how it feels essential Superman. It feels new for the here and the now. It's sort of it's irreverent and it honors what has come before, and yet it's sort of charting a new path. It's not afraid to look colorful or embrace the comic book mythology of whether it's Crypto or showing Lex the way Lex is in the comics, Luthor Corp, like all the other stuff that they have in this trailer, the suit, the brighter colors, all of that stuff is more just harkening back to an era that is a bygone, but also at the same time it's not doing it in the way that it would have been done in the past. It's sort of it's meshing the values of the audiences today combined with the iconography that is so quintessential to Superman. So when you combine all of those things, yes, I think what James Gunn is doing here potentially, and again, like I said, you can't really do this with every character because not every character like holds that place in the superhero pantheon that Superman does. Like singularly the original superhero that who can really hopefully change how superhero movies are made moving forward. Like and then again the message of the movie of, hey, it's we're going to taking our battered world to a brighter place of healing and bringing that home. It's the kind of movie that I the way that description like really sells it for me more than even the trailer did maybe. So now of course in the trailer we saw Lex Luthor, so and we know that it's not Lex Corp, it's Luthor Corp. So maybe that means the name will change over time. Maybe that's just a version they're going with. But James Gunn also talked about the conflict recently between Superman and Lex Luthor in the movie. So I'll read the quote here. Lex Luthor is absolutely Superman's equal, maybe more that. You've got to be scared, and this Lex is scary. It's a lot of ideological things about what Superman represents versus what he represents as the world's most intelligent man. And when you're willing to fight and there are no rules, you always have an upper hand over the person who's willing to fight. And it has a lot of rules, which is Superman. So this to me is like you could be describing the BVS fight in some ways, but at the same time it's being on a more ideological level versus like Lex will use anything, by any means necessary for Lex, whereas for Superman he's got rules. And I just like the way, again, it's just the potential of what James Gunn just described that like just put a smile on your face. I can tell. Like, what do you think about what James Gunn said here?
I think that's what we really need. Like, like I know maybe that sounds weird, but like, what I want from this, what I've always wanted from this is like, as much as I love mech suit Luthor and like all that shit, like I love that. Don't get me wrong, but like I want like battle of wits, and yes, Lex Luthor is one of the smartest men in the world. I think he is the smartest, but like I want Superman to kind of be that as well, but like obviously from a power subset. That's obvious because he has powers. Lex Luthor's power is his mind, but like I don't want Superman to be like a meathead. That's what I feel like in some adaptations they kind of do that.
Yeah.
Like in order to make Lex feel and be smarter. They
Mm-hmm.
kind of make, I don't want to say an idiot, but like kind of, a little bit, maybe a little bit dumber, so that they can eventually like duke it out with fists. Now, I'm not saying every adaptation is like that. I'm not saying that at all, but there is the idea of like, that's what I know I'm gonna get hate for this, but I kind of liked that about Jesse Eisenberg's Lex Luthor. Yeah, it was a stupidly overcomplicated plan, but like at
It was
least
so complicated,
it
man.
was
It
so
was.
stupidly overcomplicated. Like it like half the time it made no sense. But like I liked how they went out of their way to make this Lex be that smart and like
Mhm,
being like 10 steps ahead of everybody else.
mhm.
And unfortunately, they had to make that like needlessly complicated, and they had to do stupid things by shoving Jolly Ranchers into people's mouths. But like, even despite that, like, I like how they
It
kind of
works
did
better in
that.
the Ultimate Edition because there's a lot more nuance. You miss a lot of the details, and
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
And first, like, yeah, look at my fingers. But yeah, just making it way more sexual. But anyway, it's I like
He
how
was
it's
doing
like,
his
okay,
best,
they
Mark
are
Zuckerberg.
equals, and however they do decide to portray that, I think it will be good. But it's just I like how, and I also like how he said in the quote, if you want to go back to it, I like how he says, maybe it was this one, maybe it's another one, but I like how he said, yeah, it says, you got to be scared, and this Lex is scary. Like,
Mhm,
that's what I really like. Because as much as I enjoy like Gene Hackman
mhm.
and John Cryer and Jesse Eisenberg, I do enjoy Jesse Eisenberg. Like, I want Lex to be shit your pants scary. Like, that's because I know there is the easy route in terms of making him like a certain who that I will not get into. That's the easy route to go with, and I don't want them to do it. I don't think James Gunn is going to do that. One, it's too
Yeah.
easy, and two, it'll make it like extremely dated. And I think that like just making him like kind of what this will be like a weird comparison, but say with it, like kind of like what Heath Ledger was to the Joker a little bit,
Mhm.
like how they made him like genuinely
It,
terrifying,
like
and
like he wasn't the most physically imposing person, but
but he was
you would
terrifying.
be scared of that guy. Like
Yeah, he's
if you walked into the room with that Joker, yeah, it just gives you the creeps and like you said,
yeah, he's
terrify
like,
you. Yes.
I knew your friends better
Yes.
than you did.
Mhm.
With a gun, and does that whole monologue. You knife, you show people in the end who they really are, like that kind of thing. I liked that like scare. That's what I kind of hope for this version of Lex, because like say we will about Jesse Eisenberg, good or not, hate him or like him,
I enjoyed
he
his
was not
portrayal.
scary. Like he was
But
not.
he was
He was
psychotic, but he
menacing.
wasn't. He was meant
He wasn't
exactly. Yes,
he
I agree
wasn't
with you.
scary
Yes,
though. Like
yes,
I can
yeah.
I believe with every fiber of my being
Mhm,
that Nicholas Holt as Lex Luthor is going to be scary. Like
mhm.
literally, I know people see like him in the trailer every time he sees Superman, he's just seething, and they see that as very Silver Age. But I feel like just like how far is this hatred of this like right here, like how far is that gonna go? And I feel like he's so angry that he just like has to fucking cry, or has to just be that like filled with unbearable hatred for
Yeah.
someone else, that it's just like that can bring about a lot of scary shit. Like I mean that's how it is. That's the basic simplistic sort of thing with like serial killers. They just sometimes they just hate someone so effectively, whether that be like sometimes it's mommy issues, where they hate like that person's like Ed Gein, and they hate someone that much and they impose that hatred upon others
Yeah.
just because, or they just hate genuinely everybody around them. I want to see that in this Lex, and I like how that's like that'll be, and that's how some adaptations go in terms of Lex Luthor. He's so unbearably brilliant, yet his greatest weakness is who he is deep down, with his hatred for Superman. That I think is innately interesting. I hope that's the way that James Gunn is going to go with like like people I think they made this joke in the animated series. I don't know, I haven't watched it, so but I think I remember seeing the joke of like, oh yeah, Lex Luthor, he cured cancer like 10 years ago. It's like he can do that if he wants to, but he just, never does because he's an asshole. But so I kind of like that, and as James Gunn was saying with like being the equal ideological, where it's like, and bringing that menacing, that scariness, like being that, like the idea of like, I don't think James Gunn will do this, but like the idea of like Lex Luthor being a chaotic evil would be so fucking like scary. But I don't think he's like, because I think with like
It's
Lex Luthor, he's more of a neutral evil or maybe a lawful evil, because as we know, Superman's the lawful good, and more Joker is more the chaotic evil. That's he's like the personification of
it's a
chaos.
thing of like by the end of Batman versus Superman or Batman v Superman, Lex Luthor went from being that conniving, dude. He just knows how to manipulate the system to get what he wants, which is for people to hate Superman, right? And that's basically what, or basically to get Superman killed somehow, like to the point where he drove Batman off the cliff. Like all it takes is a little push,
Mhm.
you let your family die, and blah blah blah, and like woo, anyway, like all that whole thing.
He let
But
his
by the
hatred overcome his
but
intellect.
exactly, because by the end of the movie, he ends up in prison, shaved bald, and all that. I'm like, I feel like this particular Lex Luthor is not gonna get there at the end of this
Hmm.
movie, which is what excites me because I don't want a Lex Luthor who ends up like on a yacht somewhere with a warrant out for his arrest, having broken out of jail. Like I want a Lex Luthor who's still working the system, where Luthor Corp is still a legit organization, and for that to be an ongoing threat, because that, like you said, would be more menacing. That this guy can shake your hand, look at you, and smile at you in the face, and then
Right.
has the power to destroy you in every which way possible, and will do it, can do it at the at the flick of his fingers, and there's nothing you can do about it. And
Right.
outside of his superpowers, Superman has a lot of people and circumstances, like things that he cares about, that are susceptible to Lex Luthor's power of and over them, like for example the house, like they could lose their house on the farm and all that stuff, which obviously we saw that, not that Lex Luthor
I
caused it in
bought
the
the
Batman
bank.
versus Superman situation. Yeah. But anyway,
Yeah. So
so we could talk about this all day, but I mean, yes, I think we're on the same page that this Lex Luthor should be that kind of menacing, that terrifying. Like you feel uncomfortable, your skin starts to
yeah.
crawl if you walk into the same room with him, and yet he's not the kind of person who feels like he's just gonna like hit you in the head with a wrench and then laugh at you and run away. That's the energy that the Jesse Eisenberg Lex Luthor gave sometimes, and
Yeah.
I hope we don't get that from this Lex Luthor. So
Yeah, I just what I do hope for is like, yeah, I just hope they don't like make Superman stupid, but it's like he's like trying to one up Lex Luthor in a lot of ways, but it's just like he's intelligent, but like how the weaknesses like really, like how Lex Luthor sees, Superman's weaknesses as the rules he has, as it kind of shows towards the end, has a lot of rules, which is Superman. Just like how, but that could also be the upper hand. Like that could real be a really good psychological mind game between
hmm
the two. It's like, okay, he has power, I have my intellect. Well, I also have this deep-seated hatred for this person. He's like, well, I'm gonna give everyone a chance, I'm gonna save everyone. And then you kind of have that mental sparring in a way. So I think that could be interesting as well, like kind of throwing that in there. So yeah, I think you could do a lot with the relationship between Lex Luthor and Superman. That, gives me some hope that, this isn't just, oh, we're including Lex Luthor because he's Lex Luthor. They're actually trying to do something with this Lex Luthor and this relationship he has with Superman. So like that's the hope I have. And you know, as Superman is always about hope, so that makes sense. But yeah, I think that I like that idea. Is like, okay, we're giving you a little bit more than
yes,
just, oh hey, we
it's
have Lex
more,
Luthor because it's Lex Luthor. We have
again,
to have Lex
yeah,
Luthor.
the idea that in this version of the lore, if you want to call it that, or this cinematic universe, Lex Luthor can take down Superman without having to trying to blow him up.
Hmm.
Even though that was mostly symbolic, he knew that Superman wouldn't die. It was more the fact that Superman was there and couldn't save anyone. I get that whole commentary in BVS, but yeah, hopefully, and again, this movie I don't think is gonna go down the same path of like blowing people up and you
Hmm.
know grandma's peach tea or whatever it was, all of that stuff. But nonetheless, yeah, the one other thing I wanted to kind of quickly bring up here, a few quick hit items now. Superman the movie, Man of Steel, and now Superman have all featured the iconic Superman flying sequences. And somebody just, I mean, a few people put them side by side, and the composition is pretty similar. Clearly, each borrowing from the and kind of paying homage to what came before it. And yet you can look at the color palette. What surprised me the most about this is, I swear to God, like every time I watch Man of Steel, that first flight sequence is the brightest sequence in the movie. And yet when you put it next to the other two, it looks so much darker. And it's about maybe just relative to let me get my words right. Relative to everything else in Man of Steel, that sequence is pretty bright. But when you compare that to the color palette and how bright the other Superman movies are, or at least what the newest one looks like, it's definitely much darker. Which we know, like that's Zack Snyder's palette. So to me, it was kind of interesting to just see all that side by side. The other thing that I'm seeing the difference here, the Man of Steel cape has got this like real shiny quality to it. It's not such a matte cape, whereas you could see the other two capes are much more have a matte feel. They don't reflect the light quite the same way. And the other difference, of course, is Henry Cavill's suit doesn't have the Superman S crest on it, whereas the other two do. What are your thoughts on this? Again, just kind of looking at it side by side. Does this kind of make you more excited? Because the Superman trailer didn't give us that shot. That's from the teaser trailer.
Hmm.
But that one little shot kind of gave us a bit of a hint as to how they might show some of the flying, outside of the one where he's like flying up in the clouds, which we saw in both the teaser and the teaser trailer. But
Hmm.
again, that overhead shot that we have seen in every other Superman iteration below. What are your thoughts on this side by side comparison? Just seeing again the differences, but at the same time the similarities between the three movies.
I don't know. It's just like kind of a nice history repeats itself sort of thing, but in like homage tribute, and I like that. I think that's
Yeah.
a definitely a good way of like showcasing that, and I like how it wasn't in the main trailer, so that's kind of cool too.
Yeah, and they were like, you know what, we'll give that to you in the teaser trailer, but not the main teaser trailer. I was like, huh? But anyway, I mean, it works out just fine. We got Ron stopping in, Lex in the chat as well. Hello to all y'all. Hope you guys are having a great holiday season and holiday week. Um, Lex saying, I want Fiona Paloma to play the DC Wonder Woman. Everybody in the chat is for some reason talking about Wonder Woman right now. I don't know why. We don't really have any news on the DC Wonder Woman, unfortunately. It's still very nebulous as to where that's gonna go, guys. But if we do hear anything, we will let you know. By the way, Retro Edits Jim asked, how would you start your version of the DCU, John, if you had the power that James Gunn has? Would you start with a Superman movie like the last two DC cinematic universes have or will be doing?
I feel like it makes the most sense. But like maybe like for a moneymaker, like have Batman be part of the cinema, be the first, because Batman still consistently gets the
Mm-hmm.
most money and isn't so much of a like, I don't know what the word for it
It's
is, like so
he's
much of
he's
a
more he's a
risk,
safer
I
bet.
guess.
He's a safer
It's
bet at the box office. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
I
Yeah.
mean, look, I mean, the Batman, despite just getting, Batman, another Batman, and other Batman movies that made 700 something million. So, yeah, Batman would probably be safer, but I feel like Superman makes more sense because, I mean, he started it all.
Yeah.
So I would say do that. Um, but yeah, I think it would be cool, like, if I could go, like, I think having like Superman, Batman, or a Justice League movie would be a good start. Like personally, I think like
Yeah.
what George Miller was intending to do with Justice League Mortal, I think that could have been really good because they were planning a whole bunch of spinoffs. So like we were gonna get a Wonder Woman movie, we were gonna get a Green Lantern movie, we were gonna get another Batman movie. So I feel like that could have been a really cool
Yeah.
kind of like have the opposite of the MCU where they built up to
Mhm.
Justice League, or they built up the
You can
to the
start with the
Avengers,
Justice League and
start with the
then
Justice League, and then
yeah.
have all the spin-offs.
Which
Because
was the like they tried to do that with the DCEU, but I think the fact that they didn't really have they either had too many cooks in the kitchen or they had no cook in the kitchen kind of screwed them up. So but what I was gonna say also, like you mentioned, maybe starting with a Batman movie wouldn't be the worst idea because the Batman, outside of Batman Begins, is the lowest grossing lowest grossing non-Justice League movie featuring Batman, since Batman Begins, and yet it's grossed more money at the box office than any Superman movie ever has. So
yeah,
outside of BVS, which featured Batman, so I don't think you can count it. So yeah, it's just Batman overall as a character has always had a lot, really high ceiling at the box office and a really high floor. Whereas Superman had, obviously even like we saw that with Man of Steel, like it made less money. It made just under 700 million. So and obviously Warner Brothers was expecting not just, I mean, I think the money they were okay with, they weren't expecting the reception that it got, and then certainly from there things kind of went downhill. But we are hoping that Superman can, maybe fly a little bit higher than Man of Steel got to do back when that came out 11 years ago. Now, of course, Trevor Carley came up with this amazing Lego version of the Superman trailer that has
mm-hmm.
been blowing up the internet. Have you guys seen it? Like, let us know in the chat, in the live chat or the comments, and what do you think about it? Because it is just so amazing. The fact that this one person animated this whole freaking trailer in just a few days after watching the live action trailer, it blows my mind. And it just, to me, it's another example of how excited people are for this. That there are creatives out there who look at this trailer, feel inspired enough to go in, and I mean, this right here, this could be the Lego Superman movie, and I would totally buy that it's the real thing. What do you think about it, John? Like, it's amazing.
I mean, I've always been a big Lego
This isn't
head,
like a big Warner Brothers animation thing. This is one guy. Like, what? Like, it's impressive. Like, what do you think?
I mean, this is a lot of fun. Like I do kind of miss the like. I don't know if he actually like did stop motion or if this was just
No. This looks like it's animated, like the way the Lego movies are made.
Which I don't hate. It's not a bad thing. It's just like I feel like having it be like stop motion, like that's more like a little bit more. Not saying there was no effort. It
would take a lot more time. But I'm just saying the same tech. It looks very similar to the Lego Batman movie, the Lego movie. Like those were all animated too, but just meant to look like they were stop motion. I mean, the texturing here, the detail, it just blows my mind that you could do this. Like if you're talented enough and you know what you're doing, that you don't need to have like 100 different VFX artists or more, like thousands of people working on this. I mean, clearly, Trevor is incredibly talented, and to the point where,
of course.
I mean, James Gunn, and DC Studios, they all retweeted it. I hope this guy, Trevor, like wherever you are, man, like I hope you're making good use of your skills, and certainly, hopefully you're getting paid for them too, because this trailer looks amazing. Like literally, it's a shot-for-shot remake, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. So I just wanted to kind of bring that up because it's really been the big talk of the town today, and especially because it's now getting the attention, rightfully so, of all the the higher ups at DC. Maybe they should bring him on to do a Superman Lego movie. That maybe there's a Lego DC universe, where there's already Batman, and he could take part in it. All right, so let's do a couple of quick things here before we get into Creature Commandos, shall we? So, all right, now this I came across on the internet, and I just found it to be hilarious and amazing and funny and just glorious because Arnold Schwarzenegger, of course, he played the only live action and certainly the most iconic live action cinematic version of Mr. Freeze. And while he was telling us to chill, or allow me to break the ice, like I can't do his accent, but like, basically just being the coolest cat in the room in Batman and Robin. He was doing that because he was getting paid a cool $30 million for Batman and Robin. That's just, to me, that's a different time, man. Like it's like Tony Stark today. Like Robert Downey Jr. is probably like one of maybe a handful of people who can command that kind of money. I know that back in the 90s, like Jim Carrey was probably getting 30 million for The Mask or more. But
Well, and
it
Batman
just
Forever, like how much do you think
yes,
you got for Batman Forever?
probably more. I don't know. Like I'm just
Because it
like
was
these
literally
numbers stand out
1994
today.
was like the
Yeah.
year. It was like Jim Carrey. That was the fucking year for his career, and
Yep.
then he just like fucking
Mhm.
exploded. Tommy Lee Jones wanted to fucking kill him half the time, so
Yep.
there was that too.
Like
But
Arnold says it himself in the quote here that it was Batman and Robin where they gave it was Batman and Robin when they gave me over $30 million. I became the highest paid. I can't do it. Highest paid entertainer in the
the
history of
highest paid
Hollywood.
actor in the
History of
entire
Hollywood.
Hollywood. Like, yeah, you
I'm
go
trying
like
to do the
that's more
accent.
like Sylvester Stallone.
Yeah.
Okay, I can't do because the thing is, the problem with Arnold is that people go way too over exaggerated. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
it's like that's not he doesn't talk like that. Got to go really subtle with him. You can't.
No, see now
But
I'm
people are so
mixing
used
my
to doing it
flavors.
over exaggerated that they can't do subtle. So that's what it's hard
Yeah,
to do.
exactly. But isn't that what impersonations are all about? You gotta exaggerate a little bit.
Yeah,
Um,
depending on what you do. But I love. Meanwhile, George Clooney revealed he made 1 million. What a
that
shame.
sucks. That sucks. Just goes to show you, ER was not nearly as popular as Arnold
I
was
mean,
back
he
then.
was just known for ER at that point. Like this was
Exactly.
his first big like leading role, and it kind of proved he could be a leading man. And luckily, he had a career after the fact. But yeah, it was just kind of funny with that respect.
I just love the puns in the chat.
Ron Ron is just like paid over 30 million for ice puns. LOL. Oh hey, Hugo Millie's in the chat. Hi,
Hey.
Hugo. And they were talking about everybody chill. What killed the dinosaur?
Everybody chill. Chill.
What killed the dinosaurs? The ice age. Stay cool, bird boy.
So good. It's so bad, it's good.
Freeze where? The ice bed cupboard.
I meant to comment. I was just like, whoever wrote that probably thought they were a
Akiva
genius.
Goldsman, who,
Like-
by the way, has an Oscar. So keep that in your fucking shit right there. Just saying, Chris Terrio is the only guy who's won an Oscar and then has done other terrible shit. Like Akiva Goldsman did it first.
Can you be cold, Batman? I can.
Allow me to break the ice.
Everybody chill. It's just so good. It's so good. I swear to God, there's like I do this a few times a year. I'll go into YouTube and search for a compilation and just watch that. Just Mr. Freeze. Just the goodness of Mr. Freeze. It's so amazing. Lex is still talking about Wonder Woman. I mean, yes, we did get a preview of that in Creature Commandos, Lex. We will talk about it. To me, it's just great. Anytime we can talk about Arnold Schwarzenegger's Mr. Freeze is a good day in the world of DC for me. And I do not care if he got paid $30 million. It was definitely worth it because he was the best part of that movie. So I'm like, pay the man the money that he deserves. But John, I wanted to get your opinion on this rumor. This has been around for a few days.
Yes.
First reported by APOC Horseman and then corroborated by Daniel RPK. Two scoopers, not really like Deadline, The Hollywood Reporter, Variety. So not really an industry insider like one of the trades. It's also not coming obviously from James Gunn. But given that it's coming from two separate sources, hopefully they're talking to different people and not the same person. So it's not the same source. But they're saying that the Teen Titans movie is reportedly going with the same lineup from the animated series, which you see on screen here. What's your opinion on that? Like, do you care for that? And because to me, I immediately look at that and say there's a problem here because if it's going to be a part of the live action DCU, how does it line up with what we're going to
How does that work?
In the Bold? Exactly.
Because I'm just thinking of like certain relationships with other characters. Like, okay, so you have Robin. We already know, James Gunn already confirmed it from the beginning that in Brave and the Bold we are going to get Damian Wayne as Robin. He is going to be the current Robin. Now, with this, I assume they're going to age him up a little bit because I believe he was 12 when he was first introduced. So they're probably going to make him like, I don't know, like kind of mid-high school, like 14, 15. Just because I think it's easier for, uh it's probably going to just be easier to get like someone who can like do all that, like because he's like supposed to be like a prime level fighter and all that, and getting someone who's a little bit older so they don't have to deal with like dangerous stunts, all that. So they're probably going to do that. If I were to guess, that's just me guessing. But even with that, that makes sense. Okay, teen. He's a Teen Titan. But the problem I have is mainly with Starfire. Are they going to make Starfire that young? Because Starfire is usually the romantic, like, interest, love interest of Dick Grayson. So I know that you can do the DCAMU Teen Titans with how Dick Grayson and Starfire were like kind of like counselors to, the like Tara and Dick Grayson, Raven. I think Blue Beetle was part of the team. So that isn't a total bad idea, but I want them to all be the same age, all be the same continuity, all of that. So I don't think it should. And the thing is, I understand the animated series and to an extent the all new Teen Titans. Back when it was introduced in the early '80s, that was the thing that put Teen Titans on the map because they were first became a thing in the '70s, and I think it was Dick Grayson, Hawker, not Hawker, sorry, Wonder Girl, um, Kid Flash and Aqualad. I think those were the original Teen Titans, if I remember correctly. Maybe Arsenal in there. I'm not totally sure about that, but at least those four. So with that, I think so I obviously you would have to do that, but the thing is I don't want them to just do the animated show. I just think that's lazy because I feel like just doing the animated show, even if it is based on the team that made the Teen Titans popular, you're yeah. So exactly, how would that work? So I don't know how they're gonna make this work. And the thing is, if they're no longer teens, then you can't call them Teen Titans. They would just be called Titans, which isn't bad. I mean, it was what the show did, and even though the show sucked, um, yeah. But then, if that's the case, is it going to be a prequel? Is it going to be a prequel to the events of the DCU? Like this is going to take place with Dick Grayson as Robin, and this is just like going to be like, oh, the beginning of Teen Titans, and then like the end, like Damian Wayne, does it. Like it's just so inherently confusing with what we know for sure as the Teen Titans, and the main thing we are talking about here is that it's going to be the lineup from the animated series, which is Beast Boy, Robin, specifically Dick Grayson, Cyborg, Starfire, and Raven, which is what the new Teen Titans was. Cyborg, Beast Boy. Well, he at the time I think he became Changeling. Dick Grayson, Robin, who was eventually became Nightwing, Starfire, and Raven. So, and I think Kid Flash and Wonder Girl eventually left during the George Perez Marv Wolfman run, if I remember correctly. So, with all of that, where is this going to fit? So they have a couple of options for this. It's either make it a prequel and have it take place before the events of Superman and Creature Commandos, all that shit. And it's going to have Dick Grayson as Robin becoming Nightwing with a younger Starfire, because as I think Mano said, they already showed Starfire in the Apocalyptic Vision, and that is it looks to be an older Starfire. Like, obviously with animation, you can't really tell, but it seems that way. So you have that. So you could either do a prequel or you do a current iteration, and if this is correct that it's going to be the lineup from the animated series, then you just have Damian Wayne as Robin, Starfire as like a counselor, like who's like older, but the rest of them are the Teen Titans, and like it's just a new iteration of the Teen Titans, while the Dick Grayson one was like an original version. Or it's like they're all going to be older, which doesn't make sense because then they're not the Teen Titans anymore. They're just the Titans.
I mean, maybe because think about it this way though, because like Lex was saying earlier that she would set it or in the '80s, right?
Right.
There's because James Gunn has said that the DCU isn't like this one singular story that where everything is building upon the previous project. The DCU is going to take place across different time periods and different locations and parts of the universe and all that. So maybe like what you were hinting at, they do this, but like yeah, they could set it in the 80s. So like you said, the original lineup, like you spend maybe it's a story that's told in parallel where you have the original lineup and then you have they're telling their story from the 80s or 90s, and
Well,
while
it
it's
can't be. Well, the 80s and 90s is too old because it takes place in the present day, 2024. What, you're gonna have a fucking 50-year-old Dick Grayson? That just doesn't make sense to me. So unless it's an Elseworld story, unless Teen Titans is not a DCU story, it's an Elseworld story, which is fine. Which then fuck everything I said, but it doesn't make sense for like a current continuity DCU from what we know right now.
right.
I wouldn't mind a Tim Drake Robin because Tim Drake rarely gets any notoriety. The only thing they've done in the past like 20 years with with Tim Drake is just make him bisexual for no reason. So it's like, all right, fine. And it feels like they don't know what to do with Tim Drake, and it's kind of sad. But that's because like Dick Grayson is Nightwing. Jason Todd got resurrected and became even better. He became Red Hood. Damian Wayne's the current Robin. And then you just have Tim Drake, who's just kind of there. He's like, hi, I like men now. So it's like, all right, sure, I guess. But don't adapt this Judas contract. One, because it brings up a whole can of worms. One, they've already adapted this shit in both the animated show and into an animated movie. And two, there's pedophilic shit in that goddamn story, and we kind of want to steer clear from that. I understand you can cut it, but it's still like there. It's still associated with the story, and I really don't want to I understand Judas Contract is like the best Teen Titans story of all time, but I think there's other great Teen Titans stories you can tell without Judas Contract. Like, you just make an original story with Deathstroke as the villain without him, fucking a 12-year-old. Like, let's just not have that, please. I get it. Judas Contract is amazing. It's amazing. And you just have this weird fucked up thing that has to ruin the entire story. But it's been adapted before. I want to see them do new things. And as well as the fact that the live action show kind of did Judas Contract as well. So it's just like, let's avoid Judas Contract. Yeah, it's because like in the original comic story, it was a mutual partnership. And then in like subsequent, I don't think they even tried to do it in the animated show, which like good for them. And then in the movie, it was like she was trying to lead him on, and he was like, no, fuck off. And then in Teen Titans, or in the Titans live action series, I think they just did away with it entirely. So it's just, yeah, it's overall just fucking weird. I don't want them to deal with that. And there are other really good Teen Titans stories, other really good villains that they could use. If you want to avoid Deathstroke entirely, cool. I would still like to see Deathstroke as the main villain because he's so closely associated with them. But you don't have to do Judas Contract. So there's that. So, but we're kind of steering away from the original argument.
Yeah.
But I think this is just overall, I wouldn't hate it, but I just think that this would be so absurdly lazy. And it also kind of brings up continuity issues with what little continuity the DCU has at this point. So it's just like, it's not a problem. Like, you can use Cyborg and Beast Boy and all that shit. But I think like if it is Damian Wayne, use the Damian Wayne Teen Titans because there is one. Crush, Jin, who else? There was Emiko Queen. There was like a fat kid who could like absorb energy or something. And then there was one more, I think. But yeah, why not? And then I think Kid Flash was part of it for a little bit, and then fuck up. Just do that. Like, I understand it's not like the one everybody knows, but it would be unique because the show has already done a whole bunch. All the shows, all the movies have already done like the original lineup. Might as well kind of try to throw Bumblebee in there, throw Kid Flash in there.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those like
it's just more unique because I think Teen Titans is so illustrious with how many members they've had, and I know this is what started the iconic team. I know the George Perez, Marv Wolfman run is absolutely iconic in every sense of the word. However, you have to like be loosey goosey. Like you can't just adapt every single thing from the comics. You got to be loose with it.
Well, yeah,
Take the best parts and then do your own thing. Like mix it up.
Like bigger picture, also when you look at it, like they're doing a Superman that feels more classic because the previous iteration was such a departure from what people were used to with Superman. So we're trying to kind of like center ourselves back to who Superman the character is and what people know him as in the comics, as well as like previous TV and movie iterations. So similarly, I think with Teen Titans, like you said, we have had so many versions of the TV show, the movies, and all that, and even to a certain degree, the live action TV show. So I mean, the animated TV show and the live action, that they could go with a different lineup, especially because, like you said, at the very simplest, this lineup contradicts on several levels with the story of Batman Brave and the Bold. And when it comes down to it, Batman Brave and the Bold is the more important project. I don't think they're going to throw out the whole Damian Wayne storyline just so they can have like a particular set of characters in the Teen Titans movie. So I would imagine, like you said, I think it should be, not only something that we should encourage, hopefully, but hopefully we'll get is a lineup for the Teen Titans that is maybe not the classic one we're used to, but it's still, very iconic in its own way. They create their own legacy, kind of like the Guardians of the Galaxy. The Guardians of the Galaxy that James Gunn, made and said, that brought to us with the 3 movies that he did at Marvel. That's not the original Guardians of the Galaxy lineup. So, but it's the one that most people know because that's how most people remember that team. Most people didn't know who the Guardians were before the movies even came out. Now, I know the Teen Titans are much more popular, so there will be comparisons, but that doesn't mean you can't do a different version. I think one of you guys in the chat was talking about how you can even include a Blue Beetle in there. I think the Joel Duenia version of the character is a little too old to be like a teenager in that sense, because like in the movie, even, from yet last year, he's like graduating college, so I don't know if that would work necessarily.
Yeah,
unless
he wouldn't be a teen, so
he wouldn't be a teen.
Yeah,
he could be a Titan, but he can't be a Teen Titan. But yeah, I mean, it's also that
I understand like that's the easiest one to do. I want to see other, because the thing is with James Gunn, he has fucking weird. He's fucking weird. He knows weird niche comic book shit. Like he had fucking Kongorilla in the Creature Commandos episode. He had like the mineral vegetable man in the background. He has Weasel. He has like all these like the Bride and Frankenstein and like all these Dr. Phosphorus, which is like weirder characters. So I would like to see weird. Like I understand he wouldn't be directing Teen Titans. I understand that, but. And I would say, by the way, since Teen Titans will probably take a long time, maybe get the Duffer Brothers to fucking direct Teen Titans. I think
they'll be freed up by then. Oh, yeah, that would be good.
That would be good.
Yeah, TC24 saying Teen Titans versus Hive. Keep it simple.
That would be good. I would like to, Queen Bee, get like, Queen Bee, get like Cynthia Erivo. She's going to fucking be a superstar now because of Wicked. Get her in it. That would be awesome. Boom. Yeah. There you go. Perfect movie.
Lex has given her blessing to that idea, so there you go. Manus Time also adding to that, he's saying, I feel like it's too early to release a Teen Titan movie now. Regardless, even as a world building mentality, it's better to grow the main Justice League members than the Teen Titans. I agree, it depends.
At the same time,
yeah, it's kind of because again, when you go off the whole James Gunn approach to whichever script is ready first, like that's. But at the same time, then you gotta wonder like. To what end are you going to pursue the whole, if the script is ready, we're going to get into production thing? Because at some point, people are going to start to wonder, like, where the hell is the Wonder Woman movie that we want, or The Flash? But, speaking of which, there is something here that I wanted to talk about. Because not only did James Gunn say that he's not worried about the fact that Clayface is currently scheduled to release just 1 month apart from the Batman 2, because it's in the DCU, it won't conflict with the Batman 2. He's like, It doesn't matter. People can separate the two, and it won't affect each other. A month apart is enough time. But more importantly, somebody was asking him, hey, so Clayface is now officially the 3rd DCU film. And this is to do with more, again, the script is ready, so it gets made first kind of a approach that James Gunn has. So the question was, why didn't you choose to do a more prominent character first, like The Flash or Wonder Woman? And to that, James Gunn simply responded, because the number one rule here at DC, no movie will be greenlit. And that, well, and then you know 1A is no movie will be greenlit before the script is ready. And then you know of course Mike Flanagan's script for Clayface was ready. And then in parentheses he says something which is also very you know interesting. And as for the Flash, we're holding a beat on development. So before we get to the Flash conversation and you know the whole Wonder Woman thing, he doesn't really address the Woman side of it. And then we can maybe talk about that a little bit more when we get into Creature Commandos. But put the Flash thing aside for a second. How extreme do you think James Gunn is willing to go? Like, for example, if the Teen Titans script is ready first, and if it indeed does feature the original lineup, and they love that movie, they're like blessed from the start, and then Aguera has done it again. Do you think they will go and like alter their plans for the Batman Brave and the Bold, where the script isn't ready? Or like I'm just trying to, and or like you know if there isn't any kind of clashes between the two scripts, will we end up in a situation where we go from like having Superman to Supergirl to Clayface to I don't know like Swamp Thing or like these characters who aren't really your key Justice League members, and then you know all of a sudden Superman 2 is like the first movie, but then sorry Superman is the first movie, and then Superman 2 is like the seventh movie, and we've got like six movies in between that aren't any A-lister characters in the universe of DC. I mean, even Lanterns is on as a TV show right now, so that's not going to be a theatrical release. So, do you think James Gunn is willing to go far enough that we get to like he doesn't care, but I'm like he must care, right? Like you can't just do like okay Clayface and then a Peacemaker movie and then a Deadshot movie. No, you gotta have like your big anchor characters in there sprinkled in between. What are your thoughts on that, John? Like how far do you think James Gunn is gonna stretch that philosophy?
I think I don't know. It's as we've said, there's kind of a pros and cons to the whole thing of like the whole green lighting thing and like other characters. It's like, yeah, it's just like don't expect these movies to make a shit ton of money. Like that's like
Right.
kind of that's
I mean,
why
for $40 million,
Clayface.
it can make 200 million, and it would have like made three times his budget, like back
Yeah,
in profit. So yeah.
it's just a little I don't want to say disconcerting, but like it's a little like because the thing is, I want more characters that are not A-listers to get more movies because there's so many illustrious characters that need to be adapted.
Right.
But there's also the idea of like from a business perspective, like Peter Safran popping his head and be like, "Hey, buddy, Clayface, you do realize that every Sony movie outside of the Venom movies have flopped, right?"
hmm
So it's like, what are we doing here? So there is that like kind of back and forth a little
You
bit.
got
So,
you got to find the balance, right? Like
but
I
I
think
think
it's
to be
yeah.
fair, like in terms of the 5 official movies, only one of them is like totally unknown, and that's The Authority. People know Swamp Thing, not maybe a ton of people, but they know enough. Supergirl, they know because she just fucking was in the Flash. So there you go. And then Superman, obviously Superman. Batman, obviously Batman. So and then we're going to be getting another Batman with the Batman Part 2, and those future films or just one film. Who knows if they're doing a trilogy or more, but we'll see. Um, I think there is the I don't know. I just it's there's like a whole bunch of stuff to like really think about in regards
I'm like,
to
look,
this.
like for example, I'll give you an example, right? Like this is a big topic. We can spend a whole hour just talking about this, but just think of it. If Guillermo del Toro took over the Swamp Thing movie, I mean, James Mangold is a great director. I think he will make a fantastic Swamp Thing movie. But just as an example, even if Guillermo del Toro took over the Swamp Thing movie, I don't, and even if they gave it a budget of like $150 million, so Guillermo del Toro could do whatever the hell he wanted in the movie, um, I don't think it all of a sudden raises the ceiling of that film to making like $600-700 million, right? Like you still like certain characters. I mean, look, the Marvel Cinematic Universe got to a point where now they can do movies where they're pretty mediocre mid-range characters and they could make a good amount of money, but you still don't see Ant-Man making $1 billion, right? Like there's still limits to what a story or a character has in terms of potential at the box office. Certainly not the first one. I think if they played their cards right, maybe the third Ant-Man could have made $1 billion, but unfortunately that didn't work out. So it's possible, but you're not
And
going
it
to do that
also
with the
didn't
first
help that
movie.
who Jonathan Majors became,
All of
but
all of that stuff, included. But like it is worth mentioning, like this Clayface movie. I mean, and there is also something to be said for making if you're making a movie for 40 million and you make 200 million at the box office, it's not $1 billion movie, but you only spent 40, so like
Mhm.
it's still
Yeah.
very profitable for you. So there is that part of it. What I'm trying to say is basically, like what Manus Time was saying, I would like to see some of those bigger characters like a Wonder Woman or Aquaman or a Flash, or even if they were to give Cyborg his own movie, like I would even take that, right? Because he's so well known now because of the role that he played, for the good or the bad in the DCEU. And then let's get a second Superman movie. Let's move that Batman movie along a little bit faster than we are. I feel like James Gunn is very relaxed about it primarily because
By
we've
the
got
way,
another Batman, but I
I
feel like we
did want to
need a
say
Batman.
the whole
So
Manos thing. It's like, well, because I've seen that argument a lot with Justice League. It's like,
yeah,
why not Justice League? Why not Justice League? Maybe because the only other Justice League movie that was ever made got such huge amounts of controversy to the point that an entire movement was made to get a director's cut out, to the point that led to toxic fans to inundate people with like whole bunch of fucked up shit like death threats to restore the original director's vision. So I think they want to avoid Justice League as much as they can. Now, that's why we have not gotten a Justice League movie, because I feel like Justice League is just way too fucking riddled with controversy right now. It was such a huge
yeah.
thing in
By the way, that
regards
Nolan
to
example is apples and oranges. He's maybe one of four directors who can get that kind of hype because
him,
he's
Quentin
yeah.
Tarantino, and that's
Martin
it.
Scorsese even
Martin,
doesn't do that. Not even
yeah,
Ridley
Martin
Scott.
Scorsese. I mean, look at Killers of the
No,
Flower Moon. That
yeah. Or look
bombed.
at I mean Gladiator 2 is probably the only big hit that Ridley Scott has done in the last
James
5 years.
Cameron.
James Cameron, yep.
That's
I mean,
like,
but you can count them on one hand. Like you can't just say that you can't apply that notion to most directors. But anyway, what you were saying, John, before, yeah. I agree with you though with the whole idea. Yeah, TC24 saying the same, James Cameron. By the way, guys, hit that like button. If you're watching and you haven't hit that like button, please do so. That does help us out and gets this video in front of more eyes. And we'd love to grow the community. As of course you guys are here, we'd love to bring more people in as well, so we can share our love of DC. Now, as you guys are saying in the chat, it's all about finding the balance. I think most of you are looking for the same thing, which is we don't care, we want a good story. And that's true, but you also have to think about the average audience member, right? Like you can't just keep asking people to go see a movie that's focused on a character they have no idea what it is. Yes, because you can make a great movie and expect people to come and watch it. Though we have plenty of examples of movies that were great that nobody went to see it. And at the same time, like that like we talked about, you can make a movie on a completely unknown character, have it be fantastic, but it's not like there's a reason why Spider-Man, Batman, Avengers, like they make $1 billion, and then characters like Shang-Chi, pandemic not included, won't make $1 billion immediately because those characters need to build that reputation. They need to build that rapport with the average movie going audience. So a little bit of a balance would be nice. But like TC24 saying, all I want is a Nightwing movie. Pair her up with Batgirl as a supporting character if you want, but no Batman, no Robin. Give me Dick Grayson. I think the dynamic duo is meant to be something to that effect, right? Like they're trying to
yeah.
do like some of these other characters who are maybe not A-listers, but they're maybe like B minus listers. And I think that's the approach if you want to do it. What you don't want to do is have every other project be as much of an unknown as a Peacemaker was or as Creature Commandos was. Like, because that I think is a little too risky. Like, even if you manage the budgets, the way that they're trying to do with a 40 million supposedly for Clayface, and you're getting a much bigger budget for Supergirl, rightfully so. it's still risky because you could still fall flat on your face. You've seen plenty of examples of that today. And what you want to do is in the early goings of this DCU, you want to have like this become a big snowball that's rolling down the hill. Like there's nothing better for the DCU. David Zaslav would not love nothing more than for the first three, movies in the DCU to all make more than $500 million. But the Clayface movie, the way it's just being described right now, I know that the first Joker made $1 billion, but there's a big difference between the popularity of the Joker and Clayface. And you could go with the same approach in terms of how you budget it, the type of story that you're trying to tell, but there's no version of that Clayface movie that's gonna make the kind of money the first Joker did. It's like it just won't happen. Like let's be honest. So all I'm trying to say is like it's not like it's a trend yet, but it does seem like if James Gunn doubles down on that idea, which I don't think he will, I think he's also aware of like needing the balance. That's all I think we need to be on the lookout for.
Although the interesting thing here is like he's definitely talking about Flash apparently because he didn't mention Wonder Woman because
holding a beat on development. Yeah,
but it's just like that's interesting, and he did mention about Wally West, so it's like it's clear that they're going with
they're
what
aware.
I thought they're going with. They're gonna distance themselves from Barry Allen. Thank fucking God.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to go with Wally West. He's technically the more popular Flash. He was the Flash for fucking almost 3 decades by himself. And this generation is the one that grew up with him, especially on the animated show, even though he was technically just Barry Allen and everything but name only. But, it's whatever. It's still, that's definitely a good sign of like, yeah, okay, we might be getting, the Trinity with eventually Wonder Woman, Batman, Superman, but then we're going to get Jon Stewart Green Lantern instead of Hal Jordan. We're getting Wally West instead of that, and then we might be getting Martian Manhunter instead of the modern New 52 team with Cyborg. So, that's interesting. I think that's... And then we might be getting Hawkgirl on the Justice League instead of, Aquaman, which sucks, but, like, again, distancing themselves and taking a lot of notes from the animated show. So it's like, all right.
Yeah. No, and you know what, like what TC24 said with the whole, like, it works in the animated world, and I love JLU. I love the intro. I love that show. Justice League Unlimited is one of the best animated shows that I've seen growing up, period. But at the same time, I don't think the same mechanics apply at the box office when you're trying to draw in fans who are gonna go to the movie and think that this is still the DCEU. Like it's to them you can't just keep pushing out complete unknown characters. You have to kind of, like what Manos was saying earlier, find the balance. Because yes, we are talking about Sergeant Rock, but it's not like the whole world is talking about Sergeant Rock. I just think it's still like we live in our bubbles and we have to kind of sometimes remind ourselves that not everybody, certainly not the average person who walks into a movie theater or flips on Max, is going to know who Sergeant Rock is. Even if they did watch Creature Commandos, they probably will forget that Sergeant Rock was even a character in last week's episode. And then Antonio, like you mentioned, the Denis Villeneuve comparison. Denis Villeneuve is popular because Dune as a franchise and book is popular, and he's doing a great job of making those movies. He made Blade Runner 2049. Nobody went to see that movie. Complete box office bomb. It was terribly marketed, but it's still like I wouldn't say Denis Villeneuve is the kind of box office gold Christopher Nolan is yet. Like just watch. Once Denis Villeneuve is done with Dune, the next movie that he makes, unless it's a big franchise or some big adaptation, chances are it's going to make a lot less money because Christopher Nolan built up his rapport with the Batman movies, and in between each Batman movie, he went and made something else that was spectacular. He went and made Inception. He went and made The Prestige, and then shortly after the trilogy, he made Interstellar. I mean, big movie after big movie hit. He developed that reputation. James Cameron has been doing this since the frickin' 80s. And the Terminator franchise, and like The Abyss even became more like a cult classic. And well before we got to the Avatar movies, Titanic was the highest grossing movie of all time, still in the top 5. James Cameron fucking owns like the top 5. You would think Marvel owns the top 5. James Cameron owns the top 5. He's got like 3 of the top five highest, grossing movies at the box office. There's two Avengers movies on there, but then there's like Titanic, the two Avatars, and then I think the Spider-Man No Way Home ends up in the top 10 somewhere. So yeah, it takes time. I think Denis Villeneuve will get there, and I know you're not trying to like really make that a huge point, and I totally understand where you guys are coming from. But again, like what Mana said before, it's about the balance. I'm just like
Hmm.
right now, it's a little concerning that we get the kind of non-updates about Batman Brave and the Bold, and then all of a sudden we get a Clayface movie greenlit. Because ultimately, like what that means is eventually this release calendar is gonna get so clogged up. Like now, the earliest the Batman movies can come out is 2027. Like 2027 is like, dude, that's like 3 years away for all intents and purposes.
Almost 3 years, almost 2 years away.
I'm just saying, like, it depends on like how late in the year the movie comes out, right? Like it's it's
Right.
it's closer to 3 years than it is to two.
Right.
So anyway, but let's kind of let's keep it going on here, moving forward. We have a these were meant to be quick hits, but we kind of got tied up with a good
Sorry
conversation
about that,
nonetheless.
guys.
It's okay. I mean, great conversation. But John, we do have to talk about Creature Commandos episode 5. So Creature Commandos episode 5 came out, did its thing.
Yes.
We got a lot of Frankenstein's monster. We've got some development there. A bunch of commandos died, Creature Commandos, including potentially some significant characters. So, spoiler alert if you haven't seen the episode yet. Um, Clayface's identity revealed. Was it that does Frank Grillo need to go get tested? I mean, does Rick Flag Sr. need to go get tested or figure out maybe he's having some regrets about the decisions that he made a few episodes ago? Like, what's going on, John? Tell us about episode 5 of Creature Commandos.
I will say it's definitely a lot better than last episode. I know a lot of people loved the last episode because it was like the whole weasel thing. I don't know. I just felt like there was like not enough. Here, I felt we got a good amount. We
Yeah.
got some great stuff with story, and we got some great stuff with backstory. I think it was evenly balanced. I think a lot happened in both, and I think um I definitely think that uh there are a lot of really good stuff. Now, I liked the action sequences. Like, so the basis of it is like the creature commandos go back to the Pokolistan because they think that Princess Alana is gonna fucking take over the world, is gonna kill everybody, all that shit. So, that's because that was yeah, R.I.P. Alexi. He does die, unfortunately. Even Dr. Phosphorus was like, I'm gonna miss that guy. I like that guy. But yeah, that was great. That could be interesting. Like that's the big thing we get is Wonder Woman. But the action sequences were really great. I like how I feel like it's one of those cases where it's like we're avoiding so many there's a lot of like subversions, expectation subversion because it's like you thought the entire show is going to be trying to catch Cersei. Nope, they get her in the fourth episode, third, fourth episode. Boom. Okay, there you go. Oh, it's gonna be like a whole rigmarole with like Rick Flag can't like contact Pokolistan. Um all this other shit. And nope, he gets through and Princess Alana knows of the threat and they manage to skirt her way around it and the Creature Commandos are on the run now. Cool. I like that subversion. This was another really good episode. Like I think episode 4 was probably the second weakest. This was definitely one of the best. I think episode 3 and episode 5 were definitely the best episodes. Episode 2 was really good. Same with episode 4, just not as good as it could have been. And episode 1's the weakest, but that was like starting point, so that's fair. I think like the animation was great. Like Clayface, we get a reveal on who Clayface, and both Liz and I were wrong. We were so confident, and we were so wrong. I will eat crow. Does anybody have a crow I can eat? I'm eating crow anyway. But I was wrong, and I will admit I was wrong. It's a shame, but you know what? I'm glad I'm wrong because then it wasn't so glaringly obvious. Um, so it turns out Clayface was McPherson, who was the Themyscira expert, and it seems like he was planted by it. The way they're going here is they're insinuating that he's being planted by Cersei to like back up her claims that she's clairvoyant and that like it's not just trying to swindle people, that she's actually, like Princess Lana's an actual threat and Cersei is trying to stop her. It seems like oh, Cersei is, evil. Um, that's definitely a case. That's definitely an interesting case. Um, it's definitely a thought. Now, it's entirely possible with Amanda Waller's techniques and shit, they could bring him back to life. Look at what happened with Peacemaker. He died and he came back to life. So Amanda Waller will bring him back to life. It's fine. So I think I think there was a lot of great things in this episode. We got a lot of heavy story stuff. That's what I think was lacking in last episode. Was we got a lot of story stuff. We got a lot of like going from a big point A to point B sort of thing. A lot of expectation subversion. And just a lot of just really great moments. Like the stuff with Dr. Phosphorus was awesome. Like he finally got to, shine. Unfortunately, the bride kind of gets not the bride, sorry, Nina Mazursky and Weasel kind of get cast aside, which is not bad, but it's just like, oh, okay, a little cast aside. And then the bride gets some stuff here and there. But I think there was a lot of stuff with Frankenstein, and everyone's like, "Oh, is it just me, or is everyone, or just?" I mean, I think it was TC24. Was like, fucking, I fucking hate Frankenstein." It's like, yeah, that's the point. He's a bitch. He's an asshole. Like that's like the whole point of the character. He's a fucking simping cucked sack of shit. Like he's an unlikable character. He's like supposed to be like a fucking incel, essentially. So, and I like how they do showcase the actual threat here, like, because it seems like Rick Flag does die. Another Rick Flag bites the dust. So I don't think Clayface seems to be dead. But the thing is, he's gonna get his own movie. This version is gonna get his own movie, and so it's clearly not that he's dead. But they do definitely showcase the more brutal aspects, and so that's definitely something. Because they promised a more gruesome, brutal Clayface, and that's pretty fucking awesome. And with what they do here, but they do showcase the consequences of like someone like Rick Flag, who's not Batman, trying to take up like a fight with this guy. And it shows that, like, yeah, this motherfucker would die. Frankenstein is like has super strength and he's like has like some invulnerability and stuff like that. So, like, okay, it makes sense that he lives, but it's like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. But then on top of the fact, we do get some backstory with Frankenstein, how the gypsy woman or whatever, helped him out, and he, lived another day, took the dog, all that shit. And like he kind of learned some stuff in regards to his character, but not enough because, he still needs to learn, develop.
Right.
He is going to develop. But here's the thing that confuses me, and please, everybody in the comments, tell me if I'm going crazy here. But the woman, the quote unquote gypsy woman, well, technically it's Romani woman because gypsy's offensive now, but the woman, Bogdana, I think her name was, she dies. She saves him, but then he kills her, kind of mimicking the blind man from the original Frankenstein novel, which was a nice nod. I appreciated that. But wasn't she in the first episode? Because I don't know if have you watched an episode yet, Dan? I forget.
No, I haven't been able to catch up. Like
Okay,
I've only
so
seen like a
but do
few
you
scenes in
guys
the first.
remember in do you guys remember in the first episode, towards the end, or was it the end of the second episode? I don't forget. But at the end of the first or second episode, they um they showcase that a gypsy woman, a Romani woman, calls Frankenstein like, "Hey, that woman you wanted is here." And I thought that was the same woman. So I was confused when he kills her because I haven't rewatched the episode, but I remember okay, that makes sense. But wasn't there like a woman that was like, because like if you guys remember, like Frankenstein was on the yacht with the babes or whatever, and she calls him being like, "Hey, your bride is at the Pokolistan Frankenstein castle," and he's like, "Great, my bride," and like it cuts. Wasn't the woman who told him about that? Wasn't that same woman who died in this episode? So I'm just really confused about that. Okay, it is the same woman. Okay, that's what at least Mano says.
I mean, TC24 says something different. I don't know. It's a little...
TC424 says that it wasn't. So I don't know, but she just looks similar, and I have to go back to the episode and just rewatch it.
Yeah, we'd have to do like a side-by-side comparison. It could just be that they looked similar, but when you put them next to each other, they're like, oh, clearly not the same person.
Right. So, I was just confused with that, but whatever the case is, it was still an overall really good episode. I liked the action, I liked the story, I liked the character stuff with Frankenstein, how we get a little bit more. He's not like the worst character ever, but he's still like a shitty character. So, like why did the poor blind woman have to die? Like why you got to do that, man? So, but at least I will say he didn't kill the dog. We didn't have to go John Wick on his ass. He kept Ivan is okay. Like that's yeah. So that was yeah. So that's okay. That's good. He didn't kill the dog. That's awesome. Appreciate that. But well, I mean, obviously Rick Flag isn't going to die. He's in Superman, which takes place after this, and then he's in Peacemaker season 2, which takes place after Superman. Obviously, this dude is not going to die, which kind of sucks that it's revealed that he is, going to be in those two things because it kind of ruins the suspense a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm curious with how they do make him survive.
Yet hasn't. TC24 is like, just you wait. They haven't jumped the shark yet. Although killing the dog wouldn't be jumping the shark. But Madison saying she even asked why isn't the dog in the room. So, okay. I mean, John, does that line up? Like the continuity there seems to be.
Okay. Yeah. So that I think that was the case where she's like, "Oh, my other senses are like way better." Like how that's like the myth that like, "Oh, your other senses are better," which isn't the case.
They get heightened a little bit more, yeah.
But well, I mean, yeah. He makes worthy, heartfelt characters. It's just not in the obvious James Gunn sort of way, because I think that might be a bit much for Superman. But even despite this, I think this was another really good episode. It had way more story. It had enough backstory where it worked, but it wasn't like so much that it took away from the main story, but it wasn't so little that it was like, what's the point of this? I mean, it looked like, ironically, it looked like Thor's helmet, even though, not Thor. But yeah.
Maybe some other kind of mythological character, warrior.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe it was like a Hippolyta helmet or something.
Themyscira would be probably a really, really, really good guess. In fact, I think, let's see, Lex was hinting earlier that this might be a hint at like Princess Diana potentially.
Possibly.
Yeah. Well, certainly elements of Themyscira. But no, I mean, it sounds like this was another fantastic episode. Again, I haven't been caught up to it, but the fact that you got Clayface playing an Xbox or PlayStation, whichever that is, It's fantastic. I mean, did you notice any Easter eggs, guys? Let us know in the chat because James Gunn certainly
I
posted.
didn't I didn't
Oh,
see
their
any
episode
Easter
5 Easter
eggs.
eggs. Was there much to it here, like, or maybe just hints to other things? I think there was a reference to Bane, was it? Or some. Let's see, where is it?
I don't
One
remember a
of you guys,
Bane reference.
one of you guys said it in the chat. Love the Bane kick thing reference. Was that like when he was playing the video game? I can't
Maybe.
tell. Yeah. By the way, Antonio is saying I did Google research last night when I saw the helmet, trying to see what DC character has that helmet. Um, oh, and then Manos went back to compare the two women, and yeah, screw what I said. They look very different. Okay, so Manos
Okay.
did the compare. Okay,
So
so they're not the
I
same
just went
person.
full Mandela effect and I just
Yeah.
misremembered shit. Cool. Great. Awesome. Caught in 4K real time. Anyway. Well, I don't know if this is 4K. This is caught in 1080p. I think.
Whichever, like, you might be watching it upscaled on your 4K TV. So.
Yeah, I love how like genuinely scary they tried to make Clayface. And I hope Clayface isn't dead, because I mean, how are they gonna make the movie if he's dead? So, you know, and I would hate that like the thing that kills Clayface is fucking Frankenstein and not like something associated with Batman at the very least. So he's like, yeah, what I like about this is that he's a grotesque monster, and I kind of hope that he's one of the other Clayfaces, like um Preston Payne or Matt Hagen, or there is a Cassius Clay Clayface, as a fucking wink and a nod to Muhammad Ali. Um but yeah, I would like to see this version be different than Basil Carlo again. But I mean, even if they do Basil Carlo, that's not a bad thing. But I think there's enough that you don't have to do that, there's enough of them. There's like 7 of them. So, Lady Clay is another one you can do, but it looks like that this was just this is a guy because Alan Tudyk is voicing. I mean, they're a shapeshifter, so it could go either way. But I love how like they're clearly like, oh, it's different. Oh, he's like grotesque. He's like kind of this weird, like purpley grayish rather than
Mhm.
brown. And I like how he doesn't have like eyes, like they're just like kind of glowing. And I love how monstrous he looks. Like he looks like
Yeah.
like
He looks
the
closer
Harley
to the
Quinn version
Batman
kind of looked
animated
monstrous, but he
series.
looks
Yeah.
normal. And
Right.
so,
He's a humanoid shape, where this looks like more like
this
the
looks more like a
horror
fucking body
Clayface.
horror kind of thing, which
It-
is I feel like they're
yes.
doing for the movie.
Yeah. But by the way, like, Jose's got a pretty good theory there. I mean, maybe Lex Luthor is connected to this somehow. I wouldn't be surprised, of course, if Rick Flag Sr. came across Lex Luthor, maybe in the Superman movie.
Hmm.
Loose connections, but like the details are what matter, and James Gunn certainly is not one to miss the details. Well, but John, like, now that we have gone through, of course, 5 episodes, we've gone through the vast majority of the show. We know that the show's coming back for a season 2. We got a renewal earlier this week before episode 5 dropped. So with that in mind, where do you see the show going from here on till we get to the finale, which now there's only 2 episodes left? So the penultimate episode, episode 6, that goes by the name of Priatel Skelet, which just sounds cool to me, is going to be the first episode of the new year, January 2nd. That's next Thursday. What are you looking forward to in that episode? Who do you think is going to primarily focus on? I know that one of you guys, TC24, was saying the Doctor's Phosphorus episode is going to
Yeah,
be
it's going
the
to be
best
about Dr.
one.
Phosphorus. They already showed that
So,
in the trailer.
yeah, what are your
How
thoughts on this? Just the images and the preview ahead so far.
it just seems like they're going to be really building Dr. Phosphorus as sort of like a mob boss character, which is
Mm-hmm.
definitely an interesting way to do it. Because after like Rupert Thorne completely, like, I guess like there was something like maybe there was like a loan shark thing and he didn't make his payment and then they killed him, or he was onto something and they had to kill him. And because we did get a little bit of Rupert Thorne, it seems like Dr. Phosphorus is gonna fucking kill him and then he's gonna take over his empire and then he eventually gets caught. That's the vibe I'm getting here. And we're getting more Alan Tudyk, so that's cool with me. While is I don't know who it is. I don't think they ever revealed that it's Basil Karlo or Matt Hagen. So, obviously
Yeah.
we'll see. And, I would assume it's Basil Karlo because that's the main version.
By the way,
Um,
special hearty welcome to Brandon. I haven't seen you in the chat before, but if this is your first time, thank you for watching and joining us. And if you haven't already, hit that like button if you're enjoying what you're seeing. But no, definitely, John. I mean, the Dr. Phosphorus episode, it sounds like it's about to go off. I mean, that dance sequence alone piques my interest. So, um, now Ron, of course, asking again how many total episodes the show has, and I'm not wrong in saying there's 7, right, John? Because I know when we were first talking about the show months ago, we thought there were going to be 8 episodes, but then we found out there's 7. So, and then
yeah,
TC24 saying that it's the same.
no, yeah, it is 7 episodes. It's just we're gonna be so Dr. Phosphorus is next, and then Nina Mazursky's episode is gonna be last. So, I'm excited for both episodes because both of those are probably Dr. Phosphorus needs a lot more love, and I feel like we're gonna be getting that because we don't have much um for the next episode, like story wise, like the main story. So I feel like we're gonna be getting a lot of Dr. Phosphorus stuff here. Um so a little bit. But yeah, I'm stoked for it, and Alan Tudyk letting it loose. That's awesome. So, you know, I'm cool with that. I'm cool with that. More
By
Alan
the
Tudyk,
way,
please.
whether it's Basil Karlo or Matt Hagen, like, do you think there's possible that they can have more than one Clayface in this universe? Like, maybe we get.
Oh yeah, there's multiple clay faces. I mean, you could have Basil Karlo, you could have Matt Hagen. Maybe this version is Matt Hagen, or Preston Payne, or any of the other fucking million clay faces. And then the Clayface movie is gonna be you know the actual Clayface, which would kind of suck because then Alan Tudyk wouldn't be playing him. But a man can
Well,
dream.
I mean, that's the thing. Jose saying that dance sequence looks something straight out of The Mask. Yeah,
Yeah,
it definitely. TC24 saying, and then Jose agreeing with him, I should say. Which it definitely does. It definitely does look something straight out of The Mask. But I mean, if they can pull it off, I would trust James Gunn, Dean Lorry to do that. I'm looking forward to seeing what we have to talk about next week. I'll see if I can catch up to this. Now that we're getting to the business end of the show, maybe I should just binge it, and then that way we can all enjoy the finale together as you guys have. And so far the show is sounds like it's fantastic. Liz has been watching
yeah,
it. She'll be on tomorrow. We can ask her what she thought about it. I also love seeing Clayface is just playing like an Xbox or a PS4 or whatever. So,
yeah.
but yeah, I mean, is there any other lingering questions that you have, John, from this episode? Any mystery that you'd like to see resolved before the show's season concludes?
Nothing that crazy or anything. I just I thought this was a great episode. I thought this was a step in the right direction. I don't know if it's the best episode this season, but it is one of the better episodes, and I really maybe episode 3 or 5, which was this one of the two, I think would be
Yeah.
the best ones. And I think honestly, this might be my favorite because I feel like it got everything right and everything
Mhm.
that I wanted to see. Even though I didn't really care about the backstory for Frankenstein that much, like Weasel had a much more like, whoa, holy shit backstory. Same with the bride, but I feel like I think I'm more into the main story than the backstory stuff. And I feel like it was a huge leap in terms of story. So I think I liked that the most. And I hope that we get that. I think we're gonna get that with season 2, where it's gonna be more about the story than the backstory.
Mhm.
And I'm hopeful for that because the main story stuff is what I find to be the most interesting. Um when you're in a lab all by yourself and you got nothing else to do, maybe you just gotta practice dancing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it takes practice. And clearly he's had some practice. Manos time asking, does John think that DC Studios is off to a great start with the Christopher Reeve the documentary, the Penguin, and the Creature Commandos so far? We know that so far they've of course not released a theatrical movie like a narrative project, but of course Superman, the Christopher Reeve story was released in theaters. We have seen Creature Commandos now releasing on streaming, The Penguin as well, both on Max, and then of course The Penguin was also on HBO. It's early days, Sean, but we're coming up on the, pretty much the end of the calendar year, but certainly the first
Mm-hmm.
calendar year where DC Studios as a studio has been putting out some projects. What are your thoughts on this? I mean, we're gonna be live tomorrow. We're still here, a couple of more episodes before the year ends, so I'm sure we'll be doing more of this, kind of looking back at the year that was for DC. But what are your thoughts on what Manos is asking here? Certainly, at least with being those three projects, the things that had the DC Studios logo and blessings attached to it. Blessed from the start, were they all? And did you enjoy them, or do you think this is a winning
I
streak they can carry into the new year?
I think DC had a great year. Honestly, in my opinion, the worst thing was not Creature. Sorry, Cape Crusader. And then it kind of just went up from there. Like, we had Kite Man, we had the Penguin. I like Joker Folie do. I know other people don't. I thought it was really well done. And I'm liking Creature Commandos. I like the Superman trailer. So Cape Crusader, like a weak sauce, fucking Batman show that's coming from the guy who's way overrated, then all right, whatever, fine. But we got a ton of other great shit, and
Yeah,
I like what we've been getting. So
yeah.
you know what? And anything with DC Studios specifically, which is in addition to the Christopher Reeve documentary, I think that's pretty awesome. And the next episode is going to take place in a brothel. I forgot to mention that. So that's going to be a very interesting tidbit. So
Of course it
and
is.
one of my
Of
favorite
course it
lines
is.
from the teaser trailer was the bride being like, "You picked the wrong brothel," and I'm like, okay, just for that line alone, we're gonna get a great fucking action sequence in this brothel, and it's gonna be fucking insane.
Most likely, most likely. But yeah, I mean, DC Comics has been on fire. I mean, yes, they haven't hit on every mark. Ron earlier mentioned that, of course, Joker Fall You Do did flop. Now, that is a DC property, but it wasn't something that DC Studios shepherded. In fact, like we heard that, James Gunn gave some notes to Todd Phillips and he just decided to ignore them because he had the power to do so, which isn't something that anything, if it's a project that's under the DC Studios banner, you won't just get that kind of, capability. That was Warner Brothers Pictures giving Todd Phillips carte blanche with the budget, or Kate Blanchett with the budget, as they would say in 22 Jump Street. And it, as it most in most situations when somebody has that, it doesn't really play out all that well. So it seems like that's what happened there. But hey, everything that came out under the DC Studios banner, including Creature Commandos, so far is doing fantastically well. As Manos Time saying yes, and Jose saluting the bride, by the way. But as Manos Time is saying, and Antonio is saying, DC Comics is on fire. But then Creature Commandos episode 6, the last episode of episode 5, it's the last episode of the year. Episode 6 will kick us off into the new year of 2025. And it's going to be a fantastic year. The year will begin with episode 6 of Creature Commandos. Then, of course, we'll have the finale the week after. Then a few months later, I mean, or maybe a month later, we'll get the Superman first official trailer. That we got the teaser trailer, maybe the first story trailer, and this around the time of the NFL Super Bowl in the U.S. And then a few months after that, we get the movie itself in July. And we're off, and up and running with Peacemaker season 2 later that year. So
Mm-hmm.
2025 is going to be very interesting. Antonio is saying people are buying comics from DC. Yes, Absolute Batman was far and away the highest selling comic book of the year. So the new Absolute series of comics has certainly been a hit for the most part. And even though
Mm-hmm.
John isn't necessarily the biggest fan of some of the designs, I think like the Wonder Woman design looks good. The
I like the
Batman
Wonder Woman
symbol looks
design.
weird. Some of the Superman powers set sounds just funky. But the Martian Manhunter cover looked fantastic. I'd love to see more of that. Brandon asking, has Deathstroke and Bane been confirmed yet? It's not been confirmed by James Gunn officially. James Gunn has never mentioned the Deathstroke and Bane project. So it's not come from his mouth. We have been hearing reports from like Deadline and the Hollywood Reporter,
Yeah.
Variety, like trades, Hollywood trades, like they usually are as good as accurate. So if you go off of that, then this is definitely in the works. But James Gunn hasn't confirmed it officially, which means that they haven't crossed their T's and dotted their I's. So as far as confirmation, not from James Gunn. Is it happening? Most likely. But to be fair, those articles never said that that movie was ready to go. It just said that they're developing it, which is contrary to popular belief, if a movie is in development, doesn't guarantee it's going to actually be made. It's very possible they spend a year or two developing the project and then decide that it's not something they want to move forward with. So it could be that we hear a year from now that Deathstroke and Bane movie is dead at DC Studios. And if James Gunn had never officially commented on it, then according to the official canon of the DCU, it never existed in the first place. So yes, but that's about where we stand on that project. If we hear anything from James Gunn, if anything else happens, any more news comes out, anything official from DC Studios, like a press release, like what they did for the Dynamic Duo movie, which is official, like the Clayface movie that James Gunn himself announced, then we will bring that to you. We are here for that. We are here 5 days a week, so we will definitely get into that. Manos Time saying 2025 is going to be the year of Superman. Yes, sir, it is going to be the year of Superman. It's going to be the summer of Superman. That's for sure, at least if DC Studios has their way. Antonio saying that's one thing I think when we look back at potential impact of James Gunn, we need to mention the comic books that are selling from Wonder Woman to Supergirl. Yes, absolutely. That is definitely a big one. Antonio saying there's a guy who has a YouTube channel called the Sci-Fi Center. His name is William Powell, and he has his own comic book store, and he's talking about Supergirl, and Wonder Woman is flying off the rack. That's great. I mean, that is amazing. Mm-hmm. John, wasn't James Gunn recently asked about like some of his references for essentially Superman, and then he basically was like, man, I just get my inspiration from the comics that I read more so than just the movies that have come before.
Wow,
even though of
crazy.
course he talks to Zack Snyder and other filmmakers who have done these before. Every director would. Why shouldn't you? You're going through the similar experience, and so you want to pick up on the lessons that the people that came before you learned along the way. But yes, as far as the material goes, James Gunn is very much influenced by the comics. What do you think about just that response that he had to that? Just I took a lot of different things from different time periods, but I really go back to the comic books because I'm first and foremost a comic book fan. What do you think about his approach to that? Again, just keeping the comics at the center of his influence.
A comic book movie being influenced by comics, that's crazy. That's so crazy.
Right.
It's like
hard pressed. I mean, sometimes it's not as obvious, it's
just like sometimes even comics in a way where you can be like, okay, this comic is bad. Let's not do that. You see, even that can be influenced. Like, look at Logan. Logan is essentially Old Man Logan, but good. So, like, right. It's like you can do that. So, I would say, hell yeah, let's like make comic books the fucking center of comic book movies again. Marvel. Let's just not watch Superman the movie every fucking time and expect that level of greatness when you pick dumbasses who can't write for shit.
I mean, Manos asking you about what I think is the Jurassic League project. I don't think that's happening at this point. I mean, nobody said it's not happening, but also when we heard that it was in development, that was prior to like James Gunn and DC Studios took over proper. So and if you guys want, just search the channel for Jurassic League and watch John's epic 30-minute rant on it, because they were considering it at the time, at the behest of a Batman Beyond movie potentially, which the artwork alone was impressive enough to me, like greenlight that shit. I don't care about the story. We'll figure it out. Like, why the hell do you care about Jurassic League? I just don't think that's going to be something that they'll do. And if they do it, it's going to be some sort of like very detached from the DCU animated thing, and maybe just more for like a younger audience. But so far we have no official confirmation or news or announcements regarding the Jurassic League. And I'll move on from that before John really gets irritated. So, but Manos Time saying it's finally refreshing to see comic book movie directors feel proud talking about comic books. Well, I mean, that's
Bryan Singer.
James Gunn loves the comics. He knows the comics better than most of us do. I mean, and so he's like Kevin Feige, like the guy knows his stuff. And that doesn't mean he's gonna get every thing right. That every movie is gonna be a big hit. Every TV show is going to be really really good. Everybody has a bad day at the office, but it at the very least means that his heart's in the right place and he's not afraid to put the comic books front and center. Unlike what you said about the whole Bryan Singer situation with the X-Men.
Well, yeah, where he was like, "Oh, I don't allow comics on my set." It's like, then why the fuck are you making a comic book movie? You literally adapted one of the best X-Men stories. Like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah. By the
You
way,
adapted
yes.
two of the best X-Men stories. Yet, what?
Yeah. Speaking of the X-Men, I mean, and Marvel in general, Ron and Manos going off in the chat about how season 3 of What If is so horrendously bad that it's just it's beyond just lazy writing. And TC24 is like, don't even get me started on that BS. And I've read a lot of reactions and reviews for season 3 of What If, and they're not pretty. But hey,
No.
you know what? Creature Commandos is pretty.
I remember somebody tweeting something where it was like they showed like one of the episode titles. It was like, what if da, 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 da. And somebody retweeted like, what if we ran out of fucking ideas? Which, yeah.
Darcy and Howard the Duck have what? They have a baby? That makes no sense in the world. I do not know how that would work, and it's not a possibility I care to explore in any way whatsoever, animated or otherwise. So, wow, that is crazy. I guess they really took the whole what if concept very literally in this season, maybe. Oh yeah, and Ron is like, yes, it happens, and then Manus is like, what if? What if it is good? Well, clearly, what if is season 3 is not good.
No.
But hey, Creature Commandos is good. Episode 5 was fantastic. Episode 6 comes your way next Thursday. We'll be here talking about it. John, you will definitely, hopefully, remember to see it in time.
I watched.
I know you did
before we started.
I know, but I was like, hey, John.
Anyway,
the thing is, because I didn't hear from you earlier, so I was like, you probably forgot because of the whole Chris. Look, it's the holiday season. It's not something
I got busy doing
out of the realm of
Boxing
possibility.
Day
Exactly,
stuff.
exactly. But it was just like I was like, hey, John, have you have you seen Creature Commandos episode 5? Because like there's this Easter eggs thing that James Gunn posted, like he does every week for the episodes, and John was like, oh, I totally forgot that it was. Yeah.
Well, it was funny because I actually I go to bed at a terrible time anyway, and usually I just watch the episode if I'm up. But I was just actually trying to go to sleep last night, so I wasn't like thinking. So, yeah.
By the way, Ron in the chat is like, Marvel has fallen. I'm like, is that a sequel to those Gerard Butler movies? Is Gerard Butler about to join the MCU? Like, Marvel has fallen? Except he's going to be like this fourth wall breaking, wisecracking character that, I don't know how that would work. But Ron is like, Feige has lost the plot. That's why Robert Downey Jr. is back. Yes, and Mano's saying banking so much in nostalgia will only take Marvel so far until they run out of ideas. Nobody cares about the Young Avengers. Well, yes, I mean, I think at the end of the day, this is where I will, we're not gonna rag on Marvel all day. I think you can always criticize what DC or Marvel are doing. Nobody gets it right 100% of the time. But as far as like original ideas versus just, like you said earlier, John, just nostalgia bait all the time. Nostalgia bit all the time will only get you so far. So you do need to, have original ideas. And that's what I like about what James Gunn is doing right now with the DC properties that he's got under his purview, which seems to be pretty much everything from here on moving forward, because the Joker Fall universe is pretty much, done and dusted after the second movie failed. So now everything is under DC Studios purview. And even if you have the Cape Crusader, which is something that John doesn't necessarily like, but overall, they're using the comics to then build upon and adapt a lot of ideas that we haven't seen before, and then give us something new that we haven't seen before. I think James Gunn, more so than anybody, knows that you can't just coast on mediocrity anymore in the superhero genre. Like, you cannot make the first Suicide Squad movie, hack it up, and then still make $600 million at the box office. No, you're probably not even going to get to $100 million like what happened with the Joker Fall you do. So, yes, you need good ideas, original storytelling, and that's what James Gunn and company are looking to deliver. That's what they're doing with Creature Commandos. Liz will be back on the show tomorrow, John. We'll be back tomorrow. I'm sure we'll be talking about the latest from the world of DC. Yeah. We'll probably finally get to do the Bane and the Batista fan casting. Like, who can Batista play in the DCU? Is it Bane? James Gunn seems to think that he's probably, lost weight out of that role, essentially, because Batista is so much slimmer, because he wants to be more lean and where he is now and this time in his life. But does that mean that maybe Dave Bautista could play a different character in the DCU? And then if so, then who would you like to play Bane in the DCU? So and of course, especially if there is that rumored Bane and Deathstroke movie, we had to kind of take all of that into account, and so we'll throw all of that into the mixer. We'll mash it up. We'll come up with new ideas. John will be here. Liz, I'm sure, will have some ideas of her own. I'll see if I can add some to it as well. But I mean, hey, we'll be back here tomorrow talking about it. And of course, then we have the weekend, and then before you know it, 2025 will be here. So to everybody in the chat, Manos Time, PC24, Ron, thank you so much. I mean, we had Hunter Iggy in the chat earlier. Brandon, thanks for stopping in. And we hope that you have hit the subscribe button. And if you haven't, then do so because you're here 5 days a week. So, you can check us out all the time. Antonio, Jose, Nelson, Lex was here. We missed you today, Lenny. Fiona was here at the very beginning.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to
Hugo,
give her a kiss today. She wanted a kiss yesterday, so
maybe
I'll make sure to do that when she's on.
Yeah, maybe tomorrow. Retro Edits Jim, of course. Did I say Lex? I think I said Lex already. Mr. Carter 22 dropped in for a bit. To everybody who was watching live, and to all of you guys who check us out after we are live. Of course, we love and appreciate the comments, and so do drop those down below in the chat. Of course, there was a lot of topics that we got into today, so I'm sure you have opinions on like the Teen Titans conversation that we had. How does that work? What about the Clayface movie and the idea that if you have an original script or if you have a finished script that's going to go into production, even if that means we get like 5 unknown character movies in a row, like what do you think about that whole situation and James Gunn's commitment to that whole approach? What do you think about Creature Commandos episode 6 coming up next week? Let us know in the comments down below, and if you haven't already, hit the like button. And John, tell the people what to do. Hit subscribe and then tickle,
like, comment.
All of that bell. Stuff. All that notification shit. Bell. Just tingle that notification bell.
We finally hit 2 hours. Way to go, guys.
There you go, guys. We crossed the 2-hour mark.
That's fine. Yeah. Hell yeah.
We're doing the whole finger salute thing. All right. Well, with that said, guys, we're gonna call it a night. We'll be back tomorrow with another episode of DCU Daily.